have our 15 minutes of fame. I would like everyone to please go around quick, well, not quickly, but yeah. We want to be mindful of our time this week. But if you could just say your name and the neighborhood you live in, just so that we can all sort of get a sense of who's who. I am going to ask you to use the microphone that doesn't actually amplify so that we get it on the video. And Bill will make sure to catch your headshot. So, yep, we'll just start there with Marley.
Are we ready?
Say loud for everyone to hear that too.
I'm Marley Gallagher. I live in Observatory Hill on the north side.
I'm Rick Oskin. I live in Spring Garden, part of the north side.
I'm Omar Moya. I live on north side on Charles Street.
I'm Jay Walker. I live in the East End and Shady Side.
My name's Ty. I live on the Mount Washington.
George Danka, Regent Square.
Natalie Gilchrist, Brookline.
Julie Cooktup. I live in Brookline. I work in Carrick.
Hi, Joanne, Squirrel Hill and near CMU.
Nancy Leff in Lawrenceville.
Carolyn Tremarky, Beachview.
Matthew Darwin, East Liberty.
Azarax Kapoor, Square Hill.
Tom Jackson, Mount Washington.
Roy Blankenship, Knoxville.
Good evening, Bibiana Hill from the Belsuver neighborhood.
Sandy Kessler Kaminsky from Perry Hilltop.
All right, and then we'll go back here.
Lauren Sims, Sheridan.
Amy Dwyer, Bloomfield.
Marcus Robinson, Bloomfield.
Patricia Treelor, Crafton Heights.
Sarah Mello DeWeber, Squirrel Hill.
Michelle Parker, North Side, North Central to be specific.
Thank you. Jan Nedden, Squirrel Hill North.
Eric Young, Marshall Shaitlin.
Barry Denmark, downtown.
April Clisura, Greenfield.
I'm Tracy Kennedy. I live in Squirrel Hill.
Sylvia Smith, Wing Gap.
Bianca Alton, Homewood, and work for the city.
Jade Burka, Mount Washington.
Farhad Yuldashev, East Liberty.
Hi, I'm Rob Adams. I live in Garfield.
Yintal, Square Hill.
So as I already mentioned, I'm very excited to introduce Chuck Durham from the Department of Finance and Patrick Cornell from the Office of Management and Budget. And they're going to tell you all about dollars and cents.
All right. Does everyone have their handouts, or are they still making them work? All right. Want to get started?
Yes.
All right. So hello, everyone. Thank you for coming tonight. Like Molly said, my name is Patrick Cornell, and I work in the Office of Management and Budget. I'm a budget analyst. I have done 2 full years with the city, so now I'm going into my 3rd, and I live in Brookline.
Chuck Durham. I work at the Finance Department. I've been with the city 28 years. I live in Stanton Heights. Okay.
So here's our proposed agenda. We'll see where we end up. Basically, we're going to split it up. We'll do a little alternating between budget, finance. We'll take a break. Do a little more alternating budget and finance. And then we'll do wrap-up, evaluations, and questions.
These are our leaders of our department. You might want to write these names down if you want to. Sam is our Chief Financial Officer. Paul Lager is Director of Finance. Margaret Lanier is our Treasurer. Jen is the Director of OMB, Office of Management. Rhea is the Assistant Director. She'll be here. Rhea will be here. And Dave is the Senior Capital Manager. The finance overview. What we're going to do is I'm going to give you an overview first. Then Pat's going to come up and give you the overview in OMB. And then we'll dive into some numbers from finance. Is that okay? Okay. The director. Our department is busted up into 3 divisions. Sam and Paul oversee all 3. Okay? The director of our office is Paul Lager. He has a tough job because he has to interact with council. Have you guys ever watched city council? No? Yes? You know how that goes, right? Okay, he makes all the policy decisions. He does the citywide allocations. We do our own audits within our own departments. He's in charge of the pension trust fund, which is a big thing for us, for me especially, because I'm getting close. And I wanted to be there. And the bond rating. Now, the bond rating for the city is one of the most important things he does. Our bond rating was a B before Paul, and before the mayor actually took over, was a B. Now we're at an A1, which is stable. The top line of that tier is the AAA, okay? We are trying to get to an AA1. What happens when you get to an AA1, you can borrow more money and the interest is less, okay? The treasurer's office, they bill for real estate, library tax, and the school board, okay? Any of you guys own a house, you know that, right? Okay? They do the property for sales. We're going to get into that a little later too. I think that's one of the most interesting things the treasurer's office does. I bought my first house through the treasurer's sale. It's a real great program, and I'm going to tell you about it in a little bit. We do all the data entry. We do all the collection and compliances. Like I said, we collect the library tax, the school board tax, and the city tax. We do financial control. We have cashiers downstairs. If you guys want to come in and pay, you could pay online. You could pay downstairs. You could do a couple things there. All right, the Research and Development Division. This is where I'm housed at. I'm in here. We do new initiatives. We streamline systems. I'm going to show you a streamlined system later on, how we do our property sales now. It's really cool. We do our audits and our things. And these taxes here, the payroll tax, the local tax, the amusement tax, parking tax, these are the taxes that this department kind of handles. These are not the big taxes, okay? The big taxes will be your real estate tax, your earned income tax, and your payroll prep tax. And I'll show you the numbers on those as we get into this. We do leases, fees, and everything, legislation. And the market-based revenues, that's me. Now, this is the funnest thing on here, by far. The market-based revenues are, we try to find revenues without taxes or fees, okay? We think outside of the box. For example, if you guys ever seen the bus shelters, you know, they've seen the bus shelters downtown, they have advertisements in them. We get money for those. I'm sure you guys all have a cell phone, right? Cell towers and antennas. If you didn't notice, there's a lot of antennas on buildings, and there's a lot of cell towers. We get money for those. Some of the new initiatives we just did our vending contract, which will make three times more. We have 3 RFPs out right now, 2 for the cell towers and 1 for the bus shelters, and we expect to at least double all that money. In the case of the bus shelters, triple the money. What else? Oh, we're starting to look into our fleet advertisement. I don't know if you guys see the big belly garbage trucks and the big garbage trucks. We did have a company that wants to offer us money to advertise on our garbage trucks. Then you say, well, what company would do that, right? Glad trash bags, hefty trash bags, right? Okay. Another thing we're doing, a recycling program. We're going to do some stuff with that where they pay us money to pick up the recycling. They get to keep the recycling. I don't like that part of it so much. And that's another thing. If you guys can think of anything, it doesn't have to be big, small, that you think the city can raise money, please email me. I'm interested in everything thinking outside the box, okay? Anytime we can make more revenues for the city is a great thing, okay? And I'll be back to break down some numbers for you after Pat gives you an overview of OMB.
All right. Thanks, Chuck. So the Office of Management and Budget is definitely more internal facing than finance. We don't usually interact with the general public yourselves, except for tonight at the Civic Leadership Academy. With the exception of capital, So we have 4 main divisions. The administration is overall leadership and direction for both our department as well as some citywide coordination, including departmental planning and management functions. So we're doing a lot of research for, the big ticket items, pension, debt service, staffing levels, et cetera. The administrative component of OMB also handles supplies and human resource functions for the mayor's office, the Bureau of Neighborhood Empowerment, and our own office, OMB. We also coordinate legislation that comes from the mayor's office. So departments write it, they send it to budget reviews it to make sure that the account numbers are correct, to make sure that there's money to spend this. And then we send it over to City Council. We have a hand in hiring, posting jobs, and making sure that departments aren't hiring for positions that are not full. We want to make sure that we have vacancies when we're hiring someone new. Travel requests, and also the contracting process. So one of the big components of OMB is the capital, asset management, and infrastructure finance, and that is our capital budget, which Ria will come up and discuss later, and also asset management, so all of the city-owned properties, and fleet. So our police vehicles, our refuse vehicles, our new fireboat, all of these big ticket items. Government operations and finance transformation, that is my division, and that's the operating budget. This is your day-to-day spending. We do an annual operating budget and 5-year forecast. Like I said, we do some long-term financial planning, particularly with pension and debt, and healthcare benefits, and financial policy development. Part of our division is also the grants office, and so what they want to do is maximize the amount of external support, foundations, nonprofits, federal money, state money, that can really improve the city, but it isn't necessarily, taxpayer funded projects. And then finally, procurement is responsible for purchasing everything for the city. So they do a lot of work with commodities. If you have to have a tree removed from city property, we make sure that there's a contract to do that and someone can come out and do that. Also, the RFP process, request for proposals, is now centralized. So a department will come up with an idea. Hey, we need to bid out to all interested vendors for healthcare administration. So, OMB works with the department to process that, post it, receive all of the submissions in a fair and transparent manner. So the big picture between finance and budget, finance has all the revenue, they bring in the money, and then you see that little dotted line, we spend the money. So that's 2 sides of the same coin. You have to bring in the revenues to be able to spend it, and you have to have money to spend it, and yeah, that's that. So I'll go into the budget process, which is a lot more time consuming than you might think. First of all, the city is still under state oversight from being in financial distress. This began in 2004, was extended in 2009 and 2014. So there are 2 different organizations that offer support and assistance to the city to make sure that we're on the right track in gaining our financial footing. Act 47 is oversight for distressed municipalities, and that is a state function, and the board consists of a team of lawyers and financial managers. And so what they do is they help with more of the technical aspect, negotiation with employees and bargaining units, forecasting out revenues and expenditures, and then how can the city kind of leverage best practices that are used elsewhere across the country and bring them in-house? How can we right what's wrong? We work with them to plan our 5-year budget for operating, and we want to get and stay on firm financial footing. And then the ICA, the Intergovernmental Cooperation Authority, is more political in nature. It consists of representatives appointed by the governor and state legislative leaders, and typically there are some party line politics in play here. But they must approve our budget to release the state gaming funds that we get from having rivers in our borders. So the operating budget process, if you want to look at the handout that I provided you, it's a little easier to read. It's a year-long process. So at the beginning of the year, well, let's start in June. So on the right-hand side. In June, we prepare worksheets, we send them out to all of our departments, and we kind of figure out what these departments and offices want to do for the following year. So in June of this year, 2017, we started working on the 2018 budget, which is in full swing right now. So the departments and divisions review, their prior year spend, what we might forecast that they might need, existing contracts. They make requests, which is a lot of fun to get. Sometimes you could have departments requesting millions of dollars that we might not necessarily have to spend. So we compile all of this. The budget analysts, we do our analysis, as the title suggests, on these requests, and we kind of figure out what the city can play with for the following fiscal year, and what some of the priorities will be. In August and September, we meet with our departments and we respond to their requests. Sometimes you need more information. Sometimes you flat out say, we can't really afford this, it's not in the budget. But this is when we respond to baseline requests, position changes, organizational changes. We also keep track of accomplishments and goals as well. So then in September is when things get really interesting. This is right where we are now. Our budget is due to the ICA, the State Oversight Authority that I mentioned in the previous slide, 100 days before the end of the fiscal year. So this year, that's on Friday, 22nd. So I am a week and 2 days out from having to have my budget done, and it's a little stressful. So if I seem a little frazzled, that's why. So what we need to do is we need to confirm all these requests. We work closely with the mayor's office to see what his visions are for the next year. And then we really do see what we can work with and what we can't. So following the submission to the ICA, they either approve it, which is great, or they have some recommendations, and Act 47 does as well, in which case we would need to answer some questions, give a little bit more detail, and kind of figure out what it is that they are concerned with and how we can remedy that concern. Code states I believe it's the second Monday of November, the mayor must present the budget to council. So at this point, it is out of the administration's hands, and your council members take over the budget effectively. So in the council side of the fifth floor, there is a council budget office, and they also do some of the similar tasks that we perform. So then in November and December, council holds their televised budget hearings. They bring the department directors in, they're public, you can attend them, you can watch them on TV, and essentially the council members grill the directors for changes, why numbers have increased, why numbers have decreased, what staffing changes they want. And then they must approve a balanced budget by December 31st. And then January 1st, our fiscal year begins, and the process begins again. But I don't get off the hook. So from January to June, I still have to maintain all the things I talked about earlier: legislation, contracting, travel, and monitoring spending once it begins. If you flip over your handout, this is the 5-year financial forecast. This is like our budget cheat sheet. It's probably where you'll get all of the essential information real fast. I'm not going to go through every line, but I do want to note that in our 5-year financial forecast, there are 3 components. This target budget, which you have in front of you, which is an overview of revenues, expenditures, the operating result. I'll get to definitions in a minute. Fund balances, and the fund balance and debt service as a percentage of those yearly expenditures. There's also, if you look in the budget, a forecast split up by department. So city planning spends X amount of dollars, innovation performance spends Y amount of dollars, budget spends Z amount of dollars. And we also have a forecast by subclass, which splits the expenditures up by spending category. So you can easily see all of the regular wages, all of the healthcare benefits, all of the professional services, all of the vehicle costs, et cetera. And so, yeah.
Is there an item for capital expenditures?
So the capital budget is a separate document from operating. So we'll get there. And then on the target budget, you can see it includes prior year estimates. Because we are doing this process, prior to the end of the year. We don't have the actuals. Those actuals usually come up, the Controller's Office releases them in the CAFR, the Comprehensive Annual Financial Report, every May. And then you have a forecast of 5 years, so the following year and then 4 after that. I did want to highlight some definitions. The operating result is revenues minus expenditures. So that's going to be your surplus. What is left from the revenues that will go into the fund balance, which is it's where we store emergency funding. And the general best practice is that you want your fund balance to be 3 months worth of necessary expenses. So 3 months of salary, healthcare, whatever your pension payments might be, your debt service payments might be, and those would come up in some sort of emergency situation, a natural disaster, maybe an economic recession, a bad crisis, something like that. And then you can look at the fund balance and debt service as quick ways to gauge financial health. So you can see, if your fund balance is going, or if the percentage of the fund balance as expenditures is going down, probably not the best sign. That might mean you're spending a lot more money than you have available. And for debt service, you obviously want that to go down because you don't want to be spending most of your money on debt. All right, I'll let Chuck take over some revenues.
Okay. This is the operated budget of revenues for 2017. 81% of our money comes from the major tax revenues. And when you get this form, we'll go over it with you, and 105 million are the non-tax revenues. When you get this, look at page 1. Everybody gets one. What page 1 shows you all of this $440 million. The total breakdown of what we do with the $440 million. What I did is highlighted a few lines so we can go over them, okay? The real estate tax, I have that highlighted on top. So far, we've collected $131 million in our real estate tax. How many people own a house here? Woo. How many people rent? All of you pay that tax. Don't think you don't because you rent. You just don't pay it directly. You probably pay it to your landlord and he gives it to us. Okay? Yeah. All right. If you look at the first line, which is real estate tax, and the way I do things is a little different. A lot of people in our department compare last year to this year, and they do it that way. I do it a little different. If you can see where I have the percentage, the budgeted percentage highlighted, okay? If you can see the real estate one on top, we're already at 90%. Over 90% of that budget's already in, okay? Right now, this report was ran as of at the end of August of this year. So roughly we should have 66 to 68% of those budgets in. So as you go down the list, okay, most of them should be 66 or above. We're going to concentrate on another big one is the earned income tax. That's 41,411, okay? As you can see, 74% of that's in. That's good. That's real good. The fact that we collect $131 million in property taxes is outstanding for a city our size, considering that a large portion of our city is nonprofit. Hospitals, universities, churches, synagogues, schools. Okay? So 131 million is pretty good. And I think by the end of the year, we're not only going to reach the 136, I think we're going to do about 140. Just with modest gains. Okay, and I also have highlighted 41,441 on page 1. And that's the payroll prep tax. And if you look over at that one, you say, wow, that's only at 49%. A little low, right? Lower than 66, where we want to be. And that's because that tax is actually paid half years. Big amount comes in June, and another big amount comes in December. So we're not really worried about that tax. That tax will be fine. And if you go all the way down to the bottom of page 1, for the 440 million, we're already at 78%. And we have 4 months to go. So we're doing really well. Really well collecting taxes. Oh, now if you go to the next page, I just have highlighted, these are the non-tax revenues. From here on out are the non-tax revenues, and you can see they consists of licensing and fees, permits, building permits, things like that. If you go to the next page, charges and services, and these are all the stuff that you probably get permits for and things of that nature. Oh, and if you go to the front page of the tax, once more, I forgot to say something. This front page of tax, you're on here 4 or 5 times. Believe me. You go to the ball games, you go to the movies, right? You parked, somebody parked down here, right? So you're on here, just because it doesn't think you're on here, you're on there. Somewhere, somehow, some way, okay? So I think it's marvelous what Molly's done to get you guys to know exactly who's paying what and where your money's going to. It's great. I wish they had this 20 years ago. If you continue on page 3, it just shows you charges and services. That's part of that 105 million. Fines and forfeits are on the next page, 4. And on page 5, I want to get back to where you see intergovernmental. If you look on 45501, that's the tax that Pat was talking about, the slot tax. Thanks to Mayor Peduto and his chief of staff member Kevin Ackland, they were able to get that 10 million released, which it took a long time. It took a while to get that 10 million released to come to us. So if you look all the way at the bottom, where you see the general fund, which we already have 400 million to date, which is 73% of the budget, which is really good since we have 4 months to go, and it should be around 66 to 68%. So we're doing fantastic. One other thing I wanted to tell you about this. Together, that's 545 million roughly. You add in we collect the school tax, that's another 165 million. So $710 million comes through our finance department. That's almost $750 million. That's a lot of money. It's a lot of money we collect. People don't think we collect a lot of money. That's a lot of money. And here's the breakdown. Real estate tax makes up 26%. The earned income, 17%. Parking tax is big, 10%. You guys paid into that, some of you today. The payroll prep tax, that's employers pay that. And the revenues, charges for services, and other. And if you notice, real estate tax takes up all 12 of the smaller taxes combined. Our real estate tax is our biggest driver for money for Pat to do his thing. Okay? Here's the school, the city and the school real estate. The school is 140 million if you add the 136 on that page 1, the current year and the prior year. You'll get about 140 million. As we go further down, please remember, the city does not set the property taxes. So when you call us screaming and shouting, it's not us. It's the county that does the assessments. Okay? And I think it's coming up. I think another one's coming up pretty soon. Yeah, so the county does the assessments. If you pay your own taxes, you should try to take advantage of this discount. This is just one. I have 2 more to show you, but this is just one discount. If you come in February 10th, you get 2% off your total bill, or 2% off that particular payment that you want to make, okay? If you pay your own taxes, and I suggest that you come in early to take advantage of the 2%. Okay? There's a few other ones down the road I'm gonna show you too, how to save a little bit of money. Okay?
Hey Chuck, do you want to bring up Greg's that view?
Yes. Yes, let's put it on that right now so they can see it.
All right, so this is a cool new tool that was developed by the Department of Innovation and Performance. And it's a really cool visualization of your property parcels.
Right.
Give me a neighborhood. First one I hear. Brookline. Yeah. So it'll give it a second to load, and then you can zoom in at the property parcel level and kind of get some more information, all of the publicly available data, both from the city and the county. And then you can zoom in further, and as you can see, there's some red, so you can kind of see who's delinquent on their taxes. And again, that's public information. So
There's a lot of delinquent in that little area.
you can also see green is going to be abated properties, yellow is going to be city-owned. So, and then if you click on a parcel, hopefully this isn't
anybody's here.
You can see what information is available from the county, the lot and block, the address, the neighborhood. You can see the last sale date, the last sale price, the number of liens that are on there. So that's, they're delinquent, so they've had liens placed on their house. And then this is the county assessor, they take pictures.
Right.
So you can do this for all the neighborhoods in the city. It's a useful... Yeah.
This is one of the streamlined tools that we came up with. This is really good.
And some of these ones that are delinquent might just be vacant properties where the owners fled the city.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And we'll get into that a little bit later with retaxing bodies.
With the three taxing bodies. Carnegie Library Tax, this is a relatively new tax. This is not that old. 5 years, maybe 6 years, when they did the library tax. Here's the three taxing bodies. Now here's this property that you guys were talking about. You want to, okay? This is a great, great, great program. If you're a first-time buyer, you know anybody who wants to buy a house, okay? The 3 TBs sell city property the city takes, okay? Pastor, can we pull up the list for you? This is one of those streamlined things that we did also. For example, I bought my first house, my starter house from the city for $3,000. Put $10,000 into it. My wife and I lived in it for 10, 15 years, and it was great. So, a young couple or somebody who wants to get a starter home or somebody who's interested in buying property, this is a great way. Very, very, very good way. Just think about it. And I smack myself upside the head every time. About 30 years ago, not 30, maybe 25 years ago, I had the opportunity through the city to buy a house in Lawrenceville. You know how dumb, right? Right? So when you think about these properties, right, try to think futures, right? Think of where you think the development is going to go. Because you know how our city works. They develop here, they stop, right? They jump all the way over here, develop there, they stop, right? So think about futures when you think of these houses, okay? And some of these houses are in some nice neighborhoods already. So this is one of the best programs that I think that the real estate has down there. And the gentleman's name is Aaron Picketts. You might want to Aaron Picketts. He is the gentleman that'll actually take you to see these houses.
We have his email address later too.
Yes.
Or the general real estate.
Right.
So this is another new tool.
Yes.
The Department of Innovation, Performance, and Finance have really been on the ball this year. So this is called eProperties Plus. We'll show you how to get to the links. We have it referenced later as well. So again, you have a map. You can zoom in. Let's see what's in Troy Hill. All right, so these properties, green is vacant land that the three taxing bodies own jointly, and again, the city acts as the trustee for these properties. So yes, the county and school district own it in conjunction with the city, but the city is the one, our real estate division is the one who's showing it, clearing the titles, working with people to go through the process to figure it out. So, we can click in, okay, this is a building right here. 1538 Hatteras Street, no picture, all right. But you can click through and get some information on the full details with what's going on. Again, this is similar information to what you saw in Bird's Eye View from the county assessment page and the city databases. But you can get through, you can click through to the county real estate record. You have information about the assessment. And then there's ways, to apply to purchase this property. Download and complete the application. Right here, property sales, property.sales.3tb at pittsburghpa.gov. If you're an individual, use this application. If you're an entity, a nonprofit, use this application. And then it also links to Bird's Eye View to kind of look at other parcels. So it really is a lot easier now to see what's available. And Director Legger was thrilled when this went live just a few months ago. There's lots of different things to do with these too. So I know Chuck's about to talk about the side yard program.
Yes.
So let's jump right back in.
Right. Now, what's even great about this, also there's a side yard program. If you want to extend your own property, say there's an empty lot beside your house. It only costs you $200 to get that lot. If you want to make your own lot bigger, but it has to be beside your house. You can't get the lot down the street, okay? It takes anywhere from 6 months to a year. And there's 2 reasons why. You might not be the only one interested in that house. If you're the only one interested in that house, the time is shorter, a lot shorter. But say me and you are interested in that house. Now we got to go to an auction. Okay?
I haven't heard anything back, so will I be?
Yes, you'll be informed. And you said it's only been a couple months. It's like a 6-month process. Okay?
Why does it take so long?
Because through the treasurer sale, we got to see what liens are on the house. That takes a long time. Okay? You got to clear the liens.
Takes a long time.
Takes a long time. So those 2 things in itself takes a while. Then if there's 2 or more people, that takes a little bit of time. Okay. The side yard thing is fast. That's fast. Yeah. That's maybe 2-3 months for the side yard thing. That's especially if nobody else is interested but you. Now, if you have a neighbor on your other side that wants a little, then it's a longer process.
These also have to go through council approval.
Yes, they go through council approval, which they approve them like 99% of the time. The only reason they won't approve them, and this has happened to me once too, when I bought my little house in Homewood. I lived in Homewood, little house in Homewood. The URA, which is powerful, they're powerful. They start buying the lots beside the other lots. Okay, so they stopped me from getting my side yard because the URA wanted my whole block over there.
Why?
Because they want to do new developments.
So they
See,
jump on it.
yes, the URA, they buy little parcels at a time, but until they connect them all together, because they don't like to do one house at a time. They do projects, so they need the whole block. Okay, this is the self-assessed tax. The earned income tax, this is the breakdown. If you got a job, you pay that, right? If you got a job, you pay that. Your employer pays that. You've been to the ball games, you pay that. People that parked here today pay this. Okay? So you can see there's a lot of taxes here that you might not realize that you're paying, but you really are. All right, the earned income tax, and this is the breakdown of the earned income tax. This is what we expect out of it, $91 million. City residents only. 1% to the city, school board, and it's the revenue breakdown sharing of it at 3%. And we always stress that you make sure you file everything before the 15th of, your taxes before the 15th of April. All right, and here's this. I don't like these people.
Nobody likes them.
Do not, and I can't stress this more to homeowners, if you're having problem paying your taxes, come to us before you get delinquent. We'll set up a payment plan for you. Don't let Jordan get it. Because if Jordan gets it, okay, first of all, you're going to pay Jordan. Second of all, you miss a couple of Jordan payments, they're going to really sock it to you. Okay? If you're having problems with your taxes, come talk to us. We'll make arrangements. We'll try our best to do it. All right, this is a breakdown of what you would pay if you had, let's use a $100,000 house, for example. The earned income would be $3,000. Your city tax would be $1,250. Your school tax would be $1,750 on a $100,000 house. And this is the other breakdown of what it would be in assessed value. This is what the assessed value is what the county puts on your house. okay? The county assessors put on your house. Okay, expenditures, I'll turn it back over to Pat.
Actually, how about we take a break? I realized that I didn't even show you my budget. I will say that, like I said earlier, the final budget is passed by the city council. I think our mayor's budget has a better cover. It's usually more visually appealing, but this is pretty good. So basically, if when you find the budget, it's on PDF or in PDF version online. There are some really good resources for you to learn about, to kind of go over what we've talked about here. So the first section is going to be the budget guide, which gives you an overview of the city. It tells you what the operating budget is, the basis of accounting, which is cash. What that means that when revenues come in, we mark them, and then when we pay it out, that's an expenditure. Our fiscal year is the calendar year. As per our home rule charter, we have to have an operating budget that is balanced. And then it goes into more detail about the fund structure, budget allocations, how we, dig down from the Office of Management and Budget into the 51 subclass, which is salaries and wages, and then 51101 is specifically regular wages, premium pay, things like that. So it also has lists of departments, the major classes of revenue, expenditures, and a lot of information about what's going on. The beautiful budget cycle that I gave you all earlier is also in there. And it just explains how to read this document. So then you get into the departments. It's not very easy to see, but you have just details, goals, narratives, and then you get into numbers. So I know that could be intimidating to some, but we try to make it as easy to read as possible. So whenever you have a second, definitely go through it. We'll make sure Molly sends out the link to both the capital and operating budget. And like I was mentioning earlier to you, the debt schedules are all listed so you can see, how much interest we have to pay, how much principal we have to pay. Here's the letter about our pension funding and meeting our MMO, the minimal municipal obligation. So I'll just pass this around if you want to glance at it while I'm talking. My tabs are for IMP, finance, and personnel because as an analyst, those are the departments I'm responsible for. So you just want to pass it. All right. So now Chuck has raised all our money, so let's spend it all. Where does your money go? So in the 2017 operating budget, the biggest component is in salaries. So that's wages, that's premium pay, and it makes sense. Police and fire make up the majority of the city workforce, so the majority of the salaries are going to go towards public safety to keeping you safe. Can't argue that that's a bad thing. Salaries make up the biggest component of our operating budget. The second is benefits, healthcare, pension. We're on, and workers' compensation are the biggest components of that. The third is debt service, which here you see for this year is 16%. In 2019, we hit what we call the debt cliff, where an old set of bonds will be paid off, so that number will drop significantly. So that's a good thing. And then we're able to more responsibly take out bonds, which Rhea will get into when she talks about the capital budget, because bond money is used more for capital projects that are things like infrastructure and paving your roads and city-owned bridges and our buildings and fire stations and police zones, things like that. And the last category is other. We separate a little bit more, but it really makes up 12% of this year's operating budget. And those are things, supplies, leases, utilities to fund the electricity, professional service agreements for consulting, for whoever is processing our healthcare administration, for the team that talks to us about our wellness benefits and whether we're meeting best practices and things like that. And like I said earlier, however much Molly's spending on paper, that's in this category of other.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, she does not use a lot of paper, as far as I can tell. So another way to split up the operating budget is by service area. So last time we had it in the previous slide based on what the expenditure was, but this is going to be where it's going. So the categories are public works. That's going to be garbage. That's going to be salt in the wintertime. Recycling. That's going to be a lot of the labor that's performed around the city, and just in keeping everything smoothly running. General government is the biggest component, and I'll get into that in a second because it's really the leftovers of the other categories. Public safety is 37% of our operating budget, and if you look in this chart, that breaks down that 37%. So of that, police is 18.3%, fire is 14%, EMS is 3.8%, public safety administration, which manages all of the above, is 1.2%, and animal care and control is 0.3%. So it's the smallest public safety department, but it is certainly one of the most important if you have a raccoon running around your house. City council and the city clerk's office at the bottom are just a tiny little fraction. That's most of what they do is their time as opposed to spending money to get things done. With the council members meeting with community groups, actually having meetings on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. They're not spending as much money as facilitating it with you, the public. And then so the general government is everything else. So the Department of Finance, wow, don't even know my own Office of Management and Budget, excuse me, Innovation and Performance, Permits, Licenses and Inspections, Personnel, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And the City Controller falls into this category as well. So here's the good stuff. So what are we actually paying for this year? Like I was just saying, we have 27 departments, bureaus, and offices. So, for example, the Department of Public Safety is really broken down into the Bureau of Administration, Fire, Police, EMS, and Animal Care and Control. So that's 5 right there. Public Works is Administration, Operations, Transportation and Engineering, and
Environmental services.
Environmental Services. Thanks, Ray. Parks and Recreation. There are some smaller departments like the Citizen Police Review Board, the Ethics Board, the Law Department, et cetera. So there are 10 bargaining units for our employees. I can never chime them off the top of my head, so I brought a cheat sheet. One would be non-union. There's the police union, the fire union, PJCBC, which are technical positions, refuse teamsters. ASME Local 2037 is your foreman, your blue-collar jobs. Recreation teachers, school guards. ASME 2719 is your white-collar positions, and paramedics. So we have to do a lot of negotiations with our bargaining units, which can be challenging, but it's always interesting, that's for sure. There are 3,138 full-time city employee positions budgeted this year in 2017. There are 892 budgeted police officers. There are additional police officers that come in via the COPS grant from the federal government. And if you include our recruits right now, we're actually over this 892 number for one of the first times in decades. 656 firefighters, 176 paramedics, 20 emergency medical technicians, which is a new program this year, 626 public works employees, including 193 environmental service employees who do trash and recycling, and 57 full-time parks employees, plus over 300 part-time and seasonal employees who are your lifeguards, your rec teachers, your Shenley Park Zamboni drivers, your roving art carts, your summer food program staff, and many more. This is Rhea Price, the Assistant Director for the Office of Management and Budget. She's my boss, so I gotta be on my best behavior. But she's gonna fill in and talk about the capital budget.
Yeah, and just a disclaimer, okay, I deal with the operating side, so I'm just filling in for one of our coworkers who was supposed to be here tonight but couldn't. So, but anyway, this is a copy, our library copy of the capital budget, so please don't take it, I need it back. So feel free to pass that along and just go through it. So before I get into this, I want to talk about the main differences between the operating budget and the capital budget. Does anybody want to chime in? Okay, let me. Okay, I like to make comparisons to my own personal life. Okay, so the city's operating and capital budget. If I look at my own life, I can think of my operating budget. I use my paycheck to pay for things like my clothes, my food, my rent, things like that. So that's my personal operating budget. If I had a capital budget, that would be things like my mortgage payments, my car payments. Okay, so Things that you have to pay for on a day-to-day basis, you usually, use your salary to pay. Things that you pay, like that are large expenses that you have to pay for over a long period of time, you usually take out a loan for those expenses. And it's the same thing with the city. So the capital budget, okay, let's talk about what a capital project is. All right, well, first of all, it's any project funded by capital money, by public money. And the project is designed it's to design, build, restore, retain, or purchase any city-owned asset. It's expected to provide a long-term public benefit. The minimum value is supposed to be $50,000. There are definitely instances where there are projects or capital expenses that are under $50,000. The minimum useful life should be 5 years. So for the most part, most of our vehicles are considered, they're paid for through our equipment leasing authority, but they can be considered capital expenditures because most of our vehicles do have a useful life of over 5 years. One difference is our police vehicles. Those we do fund in our operating budget because those only have a useful life of about 3 years. Projects that are financed through debt should have a minimal useful life no shorter than the length of debt service. So usually whenever we issue debt, it's for around 30 years. So ideally, anything that we use that bond money will have a lifespan of 30 years. Ideally. Okay, now how do we fund these projects? There's 4 main categories. The first, as I mentioned, is through municipal bonds. The second category, and one that you may have been hearing a lot about over the past year because of fear that we will be losing this funding, but that's community development block grant. Pay-as-you-go funding, that is basically money that we transfer from the operating budget to the capital program to fund some capital expenses that may not be, we can't really use bond money to pay for them. So this may be things that have a useful life of like, say, 10 years or so. Some things are like very large technology expenses. We'll often pay for the implementation of those under pay-go funds. And then other. That's usually things like federal transportation funds and grants. Now, how do we choose these projects? Now, we do have a committee. It's, okay, help me out here if you remember. The CPFC, the Capital Project Facilitation Committee. Did I get it right?
I think so.
Okay, all right. So there's a committee made up of there are people from City Council, there are people from Public Works, the Controller's Office, and of course our capital budget team. So they get together, they assemble all these projects, and they rank them. And these are some of the things that they rank them on. So high on the list is projects that will resolve an imminent threat to public or employee safety or health. So those receive top priority. Then secondly, anything that achieves compliance with federal or state statutory mandates. 3, to leverage additional non-city funds. And on, there's 8 different criteria that every different project is measured on. And this is just a slide to go over the capital budget process. I believe that, there was a flow chart for the operating budget process. So it's very similar. The mayor, he proposes a set of priorities, and then the capital budget team, they have some public hearings and meetings with residents to discuss their priorities and discuss possible projects. And then based on the mayor's priorities and the residents' priorities, departments will actually submit capital project proposals. And then that goes to the CPFC, they evaluate it, and they make some recommendations for the mayor. So then, yeah, so tomorrow, our capital budget team, they're going to be giving the mayor what they're proposing to fund. And then, he'll go through and decide what he wants, if they meet his priorities. And then the plan will get amended and approved by City Council. I think that Patrick did mention this. What our Office of Management and Budget submits, that's not the final project. It goes to City Council. They make minor tweaks here and there, nothing substantial. But the final budget that is adopted and passed is what is voted on by City Council.
Can I chime in real fast?
Absolutely.
I definitely want to highlight and plug the resident evaluation component of this. I know our capital team would be angry if I didn't. So every summer, before this process really kicks into high gear, our capital team holds the capital deliberative forums. They're always in 2 neighborhoods in 2 different districts around the city. This year there was one in Brookline and one in Shadyside. And that's really where you as citizens can come in and give your input as to what problems you're facing in your neighborhood. It's much more hyper local than the generic pave my road. So I went, at the time I lived in Mount Washington, and I told them that people were speeding down Grandview Avenue. So I wrote that on my comment sheet, and they took it into consideration. Whether or not it gets funded, we'll see, but I no longer live there. But it's definitely a great way for you to get involved and increase your civic engagement and participation. This year they had representatives from a lot of interesting departments. Director Kennedy was there from PLI. Director Pizzuti was there from Office of Management and Budget. Director Gassel was there from Planning, and they're just there to answer your questions about the different types of money and what sort of projects are going on, status of current projects, etc.
And then this slide just shows, where the capital budget is allocated by functional area. So you'll see almost half goes to engineering and construction. What's another big category? Facility improvement, that's 17%. Administration, some board, I'm not really sure what that is.
That's, so for CDBG, for example, that's,
okay.
Paying the people to process things like that.
Yeah. Vehicles and equipment, $5 million. Public safety, $4.7 million. Public safety, most of those expenses are obviously funded through our operating budget. And neighborhood and community development, 10%. And this slide just shows you how to read the capital budget. So at the top, this will be the functional area, facility improvements, the project type, the responsible department, and there could be multiple responsible departments. And it'll tell you who the project manager is. And then it'll show you the different sources of funding for that project, and then a 6-year plan. That's one of the main differences between the capital budget and the operating budget. They have to have a 6-year plan, whereas the operating budget, we only have a 5-year plan. So, and it shows you the total amounts per capital funding source by year. And then there's a project description, justification, any impacts, potential impacts on the operating budget, and then prior year's unexpended funds. And then the other page will have a list of deliverables that they're supposed to meet under that project. And then there's a lovely GIS map that shows the locations of that project. And it could be multiple locations. All right, and now we're just gonna have like a little work session. So I'm gonna hand out an exercise. I'm gonna have Emily printed out like 12 copies of this. So I'm gonna have you get into groups of 5. And I'm gonna give you about 10 minutes, and I'll wait till. Now what this is, okay, it's a very simplified capital budgeting exercise. And essentially, you're going to have $20 million, okay, so, and you're gonna use that $20 million to decide amongst your group, okay, like which projects you're going to fund in this list, and at what amount. There's no right or wrong answer, okay?
All right, so our first group is going to present their budget, and we are asking that you please come up here to present so we can get you on the screen and use the microphone, the favorite microphone.
So,
It's perfect government. They're all still
you don't
working.
have to go through your entire list. just might want to mention anything that you decided not to fund, what you decided to fund at the highest level, things like that.
Okay. So, I mean, we tried to look at places that where we could cut, that we could think that that local community could fund more with like local projects and maybe trying to get some private investors for. So we attacked pools, parks, and senior centers, spray parks, playground improvement. We slashed that by 80%. It was like around 13 million, and we cut that way back to make this budget. We cut it back about 80%. So it came to like maybe 3 or 4 million there. That took up the majority of our time because we were trying to get as much money as we could for bridge repair and street paving, street lights.
What did you give the most money to?
It was going to end up being street paving and bridge repair, and also we were thinking about hillside prevention. Being in Mount Washington, we've seen a lot of landslides on that giant mountain of lead. So we'd like to see that not happen. And that's really what we got. We were stuck on bike infrastructure. It's really big out here right now. So we didn't know how much to cut that, and then we ran out of time.
All right.
Okay. I just want to remind everyone this is the capital budget exercise, which means like this is about accumulating new equipment, not necessarily maintaining what you have. So when we were prioritizing, we definitely thought about the city, our experiences in it, and what sort of line item that we wanted to really throw money at. Now, obviously, we couldn't give everyone what they were asking for, so we tried to prioritize, and I think there was a strong pull to saying like street paving in the city is extremely important. It makes sense that they wanted $20 million, so we gave them the largest portion of that, $7 million. For building improvements, we offered up, they wanted 10, we offered up $3 million. For we skipped park reconstruction. It wasn't at the top of anyone's agenda, and we went on with the hillside preservation, which is extremely important in the topography of Pittsburgh, and we offered them $2 million of their $4 million. The local match, of course, it took $3 million from the $20 million budget. So there was no negotiating there. Street lights, extremely important. Some parts of Pittsburgh are still rather dark at night, and it's important that we have street lights. We couldn't give them $2 million, we offered them $1 million. Recreation and seniors, demolition of vacant property. Not a top priority because of the real estate market in Pittsburgh right now. It's very hot. So we offered them half, keeping up with the market. Recreation and senior centers and pool reconstruction, we didn't unfortunately perceive that as being a top priority right now, but small business support was seen as important, so we gave them $1 million. Spray parks also fell to the wayside. Bridge repair, we gave $1 million, and the bike infrastructure, we gave $500,000, which might not have totaled everything, but we didn't have a lot of time, so.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, guys, so the ways we kind of looked at this were if we're going to get matching funds for all of $3,000, you really want to take advantage of those matching funds and really spend up to the whole match. That was a really good point that one of the team members made. We also talked about how some of the things that are like newer types of investment, like the bike is newer, it's harder almost to argue for keeping those things in the budget that are newer. But we did kind of take the approach of saying, well, if we cut everything, just a straight percentage cut, but then we adjusted it a little bit. So like street paving got 40%. There's a few categories that got 80%, like bike, pool, street lights got 80, playground got 80% of what they wanted, parks. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm saying it backwards. So we cut 80%. So the big cuts were parks, playgrounds, street lights, bikes.
Was there anything that you did not fund?
No, we gave. Did we give everybody some of what they wanted? What are the dashes? Okay, so everybody got some of what they wanted. And some got all, like demolition of vacant property, got all. Anything else? Okay. So far they got all.
Okay, our group, we did not fund everything. So Reader's Digest version, we funded street paving at 50% at $10 million. And we did street lights at $1.5 million, demolition of vacant properties, $500,000, recreation and senior centers at $1 million. Small business support, we funded them totally at $2 million because we figured that would provide revenue back. Bridge repair figured was really important, along with our street paving, like infrastructure. We said that was really important, so we funded them as much as we could. The reason why we didn't do some of the other things like bike infrastructure, spray parks, pool reconstruction, we figured maybe we could get matching funds, private funds, things of that nature. So we just stuck with the maybe infrastructure type things or things we thought we would get our monies back.
Basically on our budget, we thought from a consensus of everybody that was involved and all the groups that needed something done. On street paving, we decided to give $5 million, which we think that the streets helps us go and to get city moving and priority and work. Building improvements, we put $2 million, which that's going to help sort of beautify and make where basically everyone's living and change your mind state with things. Parks and recreation, which it's a new movement now with everybody exercising and stuff to go outside. We put 1.5 mil. And hillside preservation, which was a major thing with the infrastructure and everything, and housing sitting on hills, we gave $2 million. Playground improvements, we've seen that as less of a priority, so we did make sure they got something by giving them $500K. As you know, the local highway projects, that was $3 million. Street lights, that was also something that wasn't necessarily priority, but we still made sure that they got at least $500,000. Demolition of vacant properties, we only put $500,000 into that because we believe also that those properties can also become an asset in rehabbing them, or you can't tear down everything. Recreation for seniors and their centers. We gave $500,000 because it's well known that the lottery also puts a lot in why use city government when we can sort of divert other funds that's coming in to help us, so that I figured that would be a wiser expenditure of our money. Pools, reconstruction, everything's going more to the water parks, and they're starting to phase out on the pools, so we only gave $500,000 to that. Small business support, that's $2 million because in most communities, it's going to stimulate the growth and a lot of housing markets happening, so we want to promote more small business owners. Spray parks, that's sort of like the new in thing, and it's efficient. And it's happening, actually. There's funding going into that, so we gave $500K to that. Bridge repair, which is being funded state, and we also believe in it, so we gave that $1 million. Bike infrastructure, that's a new thing. More people are getting mobile on bikes, so we gave another $500,000 to that, and it totaled up to our $20,000. So, $20 million, I'm sorry.
For our group, we gave street paving $4.5 million. Building improvements, we gave them $3 million actually. And park recreation, we didn't think that was important, so we didn't give them nothing. Hillside preservation, we gave them $2 million. Playground improvements, we gave them $1 million. Street lights, we gave him $1 million. Demolition of vacant property, we gave him $500,000. Recreation and senior centers, we gave him $1 million. Pool reconstruction, we gave him $750,000. Small business support, we gave him $1 million. Spray parks, we gave him $150,000. Bridge repair, we gave him full $2 million. Bike infrastructure, we gave him $1 million. That should total up to precisely around $20 million.
All right, thank you.
Okay, we put public safety at a premium. So we funded street paving with $10 million, and we fully funded street lights with $2 million, and the demolition of vacant properties, rat infestations or whatever, is a serious problem. So we funded that fully at $2 million, and of course bridge repair, people have to get to work, and we funded that fully at $2 million. Then we went to recreation. The parks are important to people in Pittsburgh. I live near Frick Park, and on the weekends it's very crowded. And there's an agreement, I believe, between Parks Conservancy, right, and the city. So we funded that at $500,000. And we have a growing senior population. I'm included in that. $500,000, we funded that. And then we also funded small business support at $500,000. And then we dropped to, let's see, again, recreation. Playground improvements